What's up everybody, Gentleman94 here. Welcome back to another episode of Ben Builds. Today we're going to do something a little different here, and let me explain why. I am continuing to work on the 105, and I'm also working on the recce build, the P38. The problem is that neither of those kits are finished. So I haven't had a lot of time to go ahead and get a bunch of footage rendered and ready to go. So I'm a little bit lost here. So what I thought I would do instead, I want to release some videos to you guys, definitely want to keep up the schedule. So what I thought I would do today is talk a little bit about something that kind of plagues all of us model builders, and that's unfinished kits. Because I know if you're anything like me, you have a ton of them. And I wanted to go ahead and kind of walk through a couple of the unfinished kits that I have, kind of show you what they look like currently, and just kind of go from there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to start off with kind of a big one. Started this kit way back, I'd say 2007. And it's the Revell B26 Marauder. Basically, it's an old monogram kit that's now put out by Revell. And it was kind of one of those kind of cool bombers I thought I'd want to build. And I started building it, and it was actually a lot of fun. And then I thought to myself, why don't I rescribe it? So then I started to rescribe the aircraft, and that was a big task. So I actually ended up getting to about this point in the model, and this is the almost completed version of it. Had to do some work here, and I've still got a lot of work to do around the tail section down here. It is weighted, so it does sit on its tricycle gears. Yeah, there, see, it will stay up on its nose wheels, which is nice. This is all rescribed. That's top, bottom, everything is rescribed, and it's yeah, it was a long process, guys. Turret still turns, guns still elevate, which is kind of cool, you know. Whoop, there you go. This is one of those kits that I really want to finish, and I've got all the rest of the parts here. I've actually gotten rid of the box by now because, well, I usually end up getting rid of boxes when I can, because boxes take up a lot of room, you know. So this is kind of as the kit kind of sits right now. I've got to get the nose cone done. I've got to get the props on. I've got to get the canopy masked and futured. I also have to do the rear tail gun and the waist gunner positions. I got to close up the bomb bays. I'm actually going to close up the bomb bays. These are metal landing gears. The plastic landing gears broke under the weight of how much stuff I got on the nose. This nose gear is still plastic, but I do have the metal replacement if indeed I need it. Yeah, so you can kind of see a little detail in the cockpit area right there. I didn't do a whole lot because I figured, well, this was back when I really just kind of wanted to get a model done and get it up on the shelf. So I haven't done a lot of stuff on this. One thing I have done I thought was kind of cool is on the inside, you know, you have the front nose gun, and it kind of sticks out through the front glass there. And what I did is I didn't like the kit part that they had, so what I did is I actually scratch built the front ammo can, and I made a little bit of a bullet link chain there. It's not that great. I mean, it's decent, but yeah. So you know, it's okay. It's all right. But that will eventually kind of fit through the front nose here, and I'm pretty sure it fits somewhere like there, and that will kind of go there. So, you know, all in good time. It's one of those things. It is a work in progress. It's getting close to being done, but it's still a work in progress. So, yeah, you know what? It is what it is. So, I'm just going to kind of go from there. Okay, the next kit actually is a tank, and it's one of my favorite tanks of World War II. It's a Russian tank. If you haven't guessed, you probably are going to come close to it. The KV-1. And there's a little bit of a story about this one. This is a KV-1E. And it was originally, I built it back in, I'd want to say 2005, 2006, somewhere right around there. And the 1E is actually an early 1940s KV that has these large bolted on armor plates to the side of the turret, side of the hull, and down here as well. So what I had originally done is I airbrushed this thing, kind of this green color, you know, the typical Russian green. And then I came back and I actually put baking soda on different areas as if it was kind of been in snow, which is why you see here I've got this white because actually I whitewashed it real quick with some airbrushing, and then I put this baking soda on it, and it looked really cool for a good long while. And then I kind of got tired of it, and I thought, well, I want to return it back to its original, you know, unsnowed in version, and that's where I kind of left it. So I decided to do a little bit of I guess reworking of the kit. Took off all the tracks, scrubbed everything down. So there's a lot left to do on it. Might be cool to finish up. I removed this part of the section of the fender right here, because there's a reference photo I have in one of my KV books that shows a KV1E, Erkanami I think it is, without this fender. Actually, it goes back all the way to here, but well, I didn't want to cut off that much, so I don't know, I might. Right now I've just got this front section from there on. The two front stations are gone, so you can really see the front armor plating. You know, I think it's a really cool look to it. You know, I've got to weather up the back a bit more, and I added a little bullet hole here and a little bit of deflection shot there, little side action right there, couple hits, you know, a little bit in the front, just for fun. I don't know if it looks right or if it's what it really would be in real life, but it's kind of cool. So this is the KV1E. I've got to actually add in the horn and the light. I might actually just kind of mangle the light up a little bit because, well, I want this to have looked like it's been in action for a while. Because remember, this is the thing about the KV1E. I'll put it down here. The KV1E came out at a time when the Russians didn't really have anything that could withstand the larger caliber German guns. Because as the story goes, the Germans roll into Operation Barbarossa in 1941, and they run up against KVs, the early KVs, and they run up against T-34s, and they're absolutely just halted by these things. And the only reason the Germans were able to push through was because A, the Russian crews were not trained very well, and B, there were not that many KV-1s and T-34s in the field yet. They were still in the process of kind of redoing their army. They just didn't know how to use these tanks. So a lot of the times, a lot of the KVs were just knocked out, or they just got bogged down, or they just broke down. That's another thing, that the KVs had notoriously weak transmissions. So the transmissions would go out, there goes the tank, they just abandon it and they move on. The Germans would run up alongside these KVs and they would capture them, they'd take them back, and they'd kind of spray paint them in their German, you know, colors, and they'd pop a iron cross on it, and they'd send it back out to combat, and they'd actually use them against their counterpart Russian tanks, and as long as they had good communication, they worked all right. But then, of course, the Russians ended up having to kind of scramble because the Germans kind of panicked and went out and they started upgunning all their tanks. So then, of course, the Russians decided, well, we need to do something quick. We need a stopgap measure, so let's bolt on armor plating to KVs. So they took existing 1940 KVs and they bolted on these large sheets of armor, kind of almost like standoff armor in a way. You kind of notice on the top there's a bit of gap between these ones on the side and a bit of a gap here. Zoom up a little bit if you can kind of see the gaps there. Well, that's because it would impact that, it would detonate the shell. But KV, I love the KV tanks. They're just so cool, so mean looking. And I wanted to build one of these. This is a Trumpeteer kit, by the way, 1/35 scale, in case we hadn't quite guessed. So yeah, KV1E. I'm in the process of being reworked, so put that aside for now. Which brings us to another tank. A kit that I've been building and I've just kind of halted on and I haven't built in a while. This is actually a KV-85. This is the 85mm gun that was originally designed for the JS-1 and JS-2 tanks. In fact, this mantle and gun barrel came out of a JS-1 kit that I bought from the Cyber Hobby, the orange boxing of the old Dragon kits. So this is the ARC model kit, and let me actually show you what the box looks like. This is this kit right here. This is the ARC kit. This is 1/35 scale, KV-85, or in this case KB-85. But no, here it is. Now the KB-85 was kind of a stopgap between the KV series and the JS or IS series of tanks. In fact, the idea was, well, we took a KV-1S hull and we're going to put a larger gun in the KV-1S turret, an 85mm gun. It didn't work. It just wasn't enough room to effectively operate the gun. So they decided then to do another stopgap measure like the KV-1E, and they added these armored, pause this turret out there. They added these little armored extensions here to accommodate the larger turret ring. And they took the JS1 turret with an 85mm gun and mounted it on a KV1 chassis. That's how you get the KV85. Now, I've got these link-by-link tracks. These are model caskin. These are plastic link-by-link tracks. They are painted in NATO black. They need to be weathered and all that good stuff. And one thing also that I have for this kit is I have metal drive sprockets. These are metal. These are actually metal. And they will eventually fit in the back here. Like something like this. Need to be glued, of course. And then these will be ran around it, and we're looking good. That's one of the things I'm always impressed about with this rear sprocket. This thing is mean looking. Look at that. It looks mean. So, I mean, you know, this is a work in progress. Like I said, all these kits are works in progress. But this is one of those tanks that's very, very cool looking. And it's not that it was heavily armored either, because this had about the same amount of armor as a 1S would have, but just had a larger turret and a larger gun. So it's kind of a stopgap measure. There weren't a lot of them made. I'm not sure exactly how many, but there weren't a lot. There weren't a lot of these guys. So there you go, 1/35 scale ARC models. Let me talk quickly about the issues I have with the ARC model kits. ARC is actually Eastern Express. I don't know if you can see that here with the paint and all, but this is actually Eastern Express mold. And Eastern Express isn't really, they're not bad kits, but they have a lot of flash and they take a lot of work to go ahead and get to a point where they look good. If it says ARC models, it's probably an old Eastern Express mold, so you're going to have a little bit more work to do on those kits. Okay, next on the list, we're going to jump to aircraft, and we're going to talk about this one right here. This is the 1/48 scale Ki-44 Tojo. This is a kit that was put out by ARI, I think is how you say that, A-R-I-I. And it's an older kit. I'm not sure exactly what the year would have been for this one, but it's an older kit, because I actually built that kit right there. And if you can see, it's a Ki-84 Hayate. I actually built that kit back when I was probably 9 or 10. So it's been a ways. I also built the J2M Jack as well when I was a kid. And I built the Tony too, now that I think about it, Ki-61. I built that one as well. So the deal with this kit, I was on a website called Swami's Models, and I saw a build that he did of this one, and I thought to myself, oh man, I would love to build that. That's such a cool looking airplane. And at the time, you could only get this kit. Hasegawa has since released a mold of this aircraft, and they're just beautiful. So I have several of those. Those are, of course, all unbuilt back in the box. I haven't even touched them yet. But this one, I had this sitting around, and I thought, oh man, I hate to waste a model, so why don't I build it and just kind of have fun with it? So I started building it, and what I did is I closed up the landing gears, closed up the rear tail, and there's a pilot in there, though he's masked off, and I don't do pilots very well. I don't really paint figures very well, but I gave it my best shot. He's covered up, had to replace the cowling flap there. And what I've done is, you can't really see in my camera, of course. I'm working on getting a new camera, guys. Bear with me. But I actually sealed up the gun ports on the wings. And it would have had two 12.7mm machine guns in the wings, right about here, and would have two 12.7s in the nose. A lot of times what the Japanese did is they would take their aircraft and they would delete armor protection, they would delete armament off of the aircraft, and they would send it up in the air so that it could climb to the height of the B-29s. This was designed as a interceptor, has a big bomber engine in a relatively small little fighter frame. It's always been a very aggressive looking, one of my favorite Japanese aircraft from World War II. A little bit of different approach to that of, like, say, the Zero or the Ki-43 Oscar. This was not meant to be maneuverable. It was meant to zoom climb quickly to altitude, strike the bombers, and get back down. So as the war progressed, this was increasingly called upon to defend the Japanese homeland against B-29s, which if you look on the box art, you can see some B-29s in the background, there and there. It was utilized mostly as air defense fighter. It did get some use in the Philippines and in, I think, China, but for the most part, it really found a niche for itself, home defense. And that's kind of what I envisioned this to be. I wanted to go ahead and put a pilot in there. I wanted to get an idea of having the propeller, but having it as if it's spinning. So maybe doctor up these a bit, or maybe cut those out completely. I don't know. We'll have to see what I do with that. And I wanted to delete the wing guns because that was a common thing that they would do to go ahead and get these guys to climb up to the altitude faster. I wanted to leave the front guns though because I like how that looks, and just make it as streamlined, as clean as possible. And I wanted to go ahead and get this all silver, and I wanted to paint all the markings on by airbrush. Because if you look at the decals, these are pretty bad, and a lot of them are really cracked, and I don't think these would come off and actually work anymore. So I'm going to keep these. I might try to get away with some of the B29 kill markings, but for the most part, I'm going to keep these. I'm just going to run with it as best I can. So it's kind of where this one stands. I plan on having it somewhat of a little display, as if, you know, it's kind of zoom climbing up or something. I don't know. It's going to be all silver, all natural metal look. It's going to have the white home defense bands around the fuselage and the wings, and you have the red suns. I'm not sure about the rear tail markings. I might have to reproduce that, but we'll see. And the black anti-glare panels there and towards the back. It'll be good to go. Anyway, so 1/48 scale, Ki 44 Shoki, or Tojo as we called it. Moving on to aircraft, why not? Let's go ahead and grab this one. This one is close to being finished, but isn't quite there. This is a Fire Mk3. This is built up mostly, yeah, you actually will notice that this is the same kit that I recorded when I was doing my quick walkthrough for decal placement. So this is the exact aircraft I used, and it's pretty much ready to go. I mean, it's not exactly perfect, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close. So the thing is, this has already been top coated, so now I need to go ahead and weather it. And weathering is a very difficult thing for me to do, and I'm not sure how to weather aircraft. So yeah, I'm kind of stuck. But it's a Fire. It looks cool. I like how it kind of has turned out. I got some nice little bit of, I guess, pre-shading going on here. So I need to go ahead and wet the top down and kind of get it looking good. Everything's sucked into the panel lines well with the microsol and the micro set. So yeah, it is what it is, right guys? So put that aside for now.